Hello and welcome to another video. If you're here from my previous one or if you're watching this in series, you should probably subscribe. If you haven't seen the last ones and you're a beginner for Blender, this is a nice place to start because I'm gonna be doing these really slow and step by step. This is what we had at the end of the last video, and this is what we're gonna be accomplishing in this one. If this is something that interests you, keep watching. You can also find a link to the entire series playlist in the description down below. Before we begin, just a few changes. I'm gonna come here, disable the camera, come over here, re-enable this thing, and click this, go into the object data properties, and turn on auto smoothing. You can take a look at what that does. So anything that's less than 30 degrees, it'll smooth. Anything that's more than 30, it won't smooth. You can see that happening over here. Anyway, I'm gonna select this thing over here because we are going to be making this mirror. We really need this mirror right now. Why? I'm gonna answer after we're done making it. So get into edit view, zoom in over here as well, and I'm gonna select this face and try and match it as perfectly as possible. So G, X, and select the bottom face and come over here to the bottom as well. G, Z. You can hold shift to move this in small increments. And if it's still too fast, you need to zoom in, then press G, Z, and then hold shift. All right, so that's done. Get into wireframe view. I'm gonna select this thing and shift G, and this is an insanely useful menu. I'm gonna select length over here, and this will select all the edges that have similar lengths. So Control B, I'm gonna move it up over here. Use your mouse to add in some segments. We're going to be adding in subsurface divisions. So that means that you don't really need to add that many segments because when we do Control 2, it's going to add in all those segments for us. So now that it's, smoothened it out, we can see that it has created this hideous looking thing. How do we fix that? So the way I did that in the last part was by adding in a bevel modifier above my subsurface division, setting its limit to angle and say increasing the segments just a tiny bit, and shade smooth, and lowering this value to something that's, really small. Now, this is one solution for it, but Umar Farouk, I believe, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, he was asking why I'm using the bevel modifier. So let's not use the bevel modifier. I'm just going to disable it by clicking these two buttons over here, and I'm going to get into edit view, and I'm going to add in loop cuts. So move that over here, select this, press I, and this thing. See, it's similar but not the same because I had to do these extra steps. And if it's something that's a complicated shape, then doing that is tedious. It takes time. So the bevel modifier does that for me. What this does is anything that's greater than 30 degrees, it'll add in that loop cut at this distance. So I'm going to undo, delete those, and just re-enable the bevel modifier, and it'll do my hard work for me. Now there are times when you need to change this angle value because if you don't, then see, this thing is sharpened, but this is still beveled. Now, maybe you want that, maybe you don't, but right now we don't. Then select this interface, press I just to do this. Make sure you match this edge, press E, and hold shift when you're moving it in. And there we go. We have our mirror. Well, not really because it's not a mirror right now. We need to turn this into a mirror. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to the materials, add in a new material, call this mirror. Actually, let's call this mirror's edge. And then I'm going to add in another material and just call that mirror. Now there are two ways to do this, but I'm gonna get into edit view, press assign, make sure the mirror is selected, and also make sure only this interface is selected. And just come over here, change this to glossy BSDF, change the roughness down to 0 for now, and don't worry about it. We're gonna be playing with the shader editor a lot, but just not right now. So now we can see through this mirror. Why did we do all of this work, and why is the mirror the only thing in this entire scene that actually has a material? Well, we kind of need the mirror. If you take a look over here, there's a significant part of this scene that we can't actually see without the mirror. So for all of this modeling, we're going to be using this mirror as our reference, and we're going to be taking a look at what stuff looks like through this mirror, so through this thing. Now, sadly, you can't do this in Eevee. If you're using Eevee, you're kind of out of luck. This is Future Wasik over here. You can have reflections in Eevee, but you need to bake the reflection cube maps. So you can't do that in real time while you're editing. And we need to use this mirror to actually look at what's going on. Anyway, back to the video. But this is a nice tip. Switch to cycles, press Ctrl B, and you can select a region, and it will only render that region, nothing else. In order to cancel it, you can just Ctrl B all of this thing again. There is a hotkey called Ctrl Alt B, but what that does is it just removes the entire render region. But I just want it to be in this thing, so yeah. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and match this window over here, the window pane. So that is gonna be this thing. I am gonna have to give this a material so I can easily see it, and I'm gonna call this black, and let's give it a color. Yes, I called it black and then made it pink or purple or something. What I'm gonna do next is I am just going to get into this edit mode. So the first thing I'm gonna match is this bottom edge, G, Z, and try and match this over here. Now we can't actually see where it ends. I think it's over here. So I'm gonna try and match it with that, but just a little bit above. Now this is where we start deviating from our reference image a little bit, because there are gonna be imperfections. This is a mirror in the real world. At least I hope this is not a render. But yeah, real mirrors, they're not perfectly straight. They have concavity. They're either concave or they're convex. And what that does is it creates distortion. And this is really subtle in the real world because we're used to mirrors. We're used to seeing ourselves in a mirror. But if you ever take a look at a super cheap mirror compared to a really expensive mirror and put them side by side, you will actually notice the difference. You just don't notice it when you don't have any reference point. But anyway, that's not the point. The point of this entire rant is that we can't match this reflection perfectly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and match this as much as possible in the sense of where the window ends and nothing else. So G, Y, and round over here. Now everything else down here, I'm not going to match that. This is a straight line. It matches over here. Actually, I think I should probably move it down a little bit. There we go. So it matches over here. There is no reason for it to not match in there unless this mirror is slightly convex. Just gonna end my rant now and select this front edge. Now if we did this right, we shouldn't have a lot of issues with this. Press I and take this in. So around here, press E and move it in. Press I, move it in over here. Yeah, it's looking nice. I am going to move in here as well just to see what's going on. So we did this one, then in. Okay, I'm gonna scale this up a little bit. There, then in, then I, and then in. Okay, so now we're having an issue, so I'm just gonna hide this thing for now. We're gonna deal with it in a bit, don't worry about it. So GX, move it in, and there we go. Alright, so it's super easy to deal with this problem. I'm just gonna select this face. Since this face is the only one with a hole in it in this entire scene, I'm gonna separate it into a separate object over here. I'm gonna solidify it. I'm gonna select this window over here that we have. I'm gonna origin to geometry, Shift S and select it. I'm gonna add in a cube. I'm gonna select the cube and scale it along the Y until it reaches the edges. Scale it along the Z until it reaches the edges. Now, I know you shouldn't be scaling things outside of edit view, but Control A, and I'm gonna apply the scale. So it's just gonna be as if I scaled it in the edit view. Okay, and finally what we're gonna do is we're gonna select this face and add in a Boolean. Use this dropper to select this cube, and then we can hide this cube. But first we need to select this face, delete it, this face, delete it, and select all of this thing over here, move it in to just make it cross, nothing else. All right, nice and pink. I am going to get rid of this color right now though. Okay, so a bit of explanation about why we had to solidify this, because if you don't, what it's going to do is it's going to carve in the Boolean operation. So just disable this and you can see what's going on is it's using the object that we made to carve it in. See, if I turn off backface culling for a bit, you can see what's going on. This is a backface. This is actually something that the Boolean operation created. So you need to solidify it to tell it, oh, okay, so this object, it's this thick, and cut a hole through it. There is a side effect of it. We can't see through this face right now, but we don't really need to anyway for the most part, because we're going to be looking at it. We're going to be looking at our scene from this direction, right? All right, so now let's use this reflection over here to try and figure out how wide our room really is. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to select this face as well as this. So just select both of these and get into edit view. So this way we can edit this thing, but it'll only select one. If you use wireframe mode and select it, it'll select both of them. All right, get into top view, Alt A to deselect everything and just select these things. And we're going to try and make our room smaller. So G, Y, and make it smaller. Now I can't actually see anything, so I guess I'm gonna have to do something. I'm gonna have to give this thing a different color than this. So let's just give this the pink color that we had. That's actually called black. Select both of these, get back into top view, and select this bottom bit again in vertex mode. All right, so what do we have? G, Y, and say over here. Seems fine. And just double checking. The next problem that we have is that we need to carve in this room. And in order to do that, we're gonna have to play with some things. So I could just add in this loop cut over here, right? And I could just say extrude this out. But how do I know this is right? I don't. So I'm gonna just remove this material over here from this thing. What I can do is I can just come over here, select this thing, get into edit view, Alt A to deselect everything, vertex mode, select this middle bit, and I'm gonna re-enable this thing and G, X, and you can move this left or right. Oh, you need to select these in wireframe mode. There we go. So G, X. Move them left or right until it meets this bit. All right, and then how deep is this pocket that's back here? Let's take a look. So we can use this top corner over here to figure out both how high it needs to be and how far back it needs to be. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to use something over here that we already have a reference for, and that is the height of this room. So get into edit view, and we're gonna need to select both of these walls, so this wall and this wall. Edit view and get into front view, wireframe, deselect everything and select all of these vertices up there, G and Z, and I'm gonna move it, say, there. Just making sure by disabling this thing that that's actually the roof. There we go. As we can see, the windows aren't really perfect from the top bit, but aligning this area is going to be a problem. What we can align though is the height. So let's align the height over here, but we need to take a look at it from this perspective first. So let's go back into the mirror, and what we're going to do is we're going to press Alt H to unhide everything. That means we can select both our window pane as well as this cube over here that we added for the boolean. Get into edit mode, press 1 to get into this view, wireframe mode, and select all of these vertices up here, and then you can move them up or down. This needs to be in rendered view because otherwise you can't see through the mirror. So G, Z, and that's barely visible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a color. And as for this thing, I think I'm going to have to hide it for now. Just select this. G, Z, move it up, say around here. Unhide everything so we can select the Boolean object. Select the top face and move it up, and then you can hide it again. I'm going to remove that material once more, and then we can finally work on the depth of this thing. So a nice reference point over here is this corner. I'm just going to select that. I'm going to try and see if I can actually take a look at that corner. It's kind of hard to see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this light back here. Now it's easier to see. And just try to match it over here. There we go. So you can actually see the distortion in the mirror because, one second, if I just come over here and give you the view in this with this angle, I can actually show you. Just take a look at this thing. This mirror in this render is perfect. It has no distortion. So this edge is going this way, but the moment you add in our reference image, you can see that it's going up. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to try to make it visible. Yeah, so this is our line over here, and then the reference image is just completely different. Anyway, so the next thing we need to add is this entire window over here. Now, select the pane over here and origin to geometry, and Shift S cursor to select it. What that should do is that should put your cursor in the middle of this geometry. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a cube. Now, the first thing you need to do is just delete all of these other faces over here. So just delete all of these other faces. There is a faster way to select them, but obviously I didn't do it like that. Now scale this up and G and X and move it back. Now what we're trying to match is we're trying to match this window pane. So over here. Okay, and then we can scale it back down. Now remember, you're not allowed to move it in the X direction, just the Y and the Z direction. So G and Shift X to lock it in the X direction and move it here, scale it down. G, Shift X, move it here, scale it up. All right, so next up, S, Z, and scale it up. There we go. Now, there are multiple ways to do this next bit, so let's do it the easiest way possible. Control R is what I'm gonna do, and move it all the way here. Control R, Control R, Control R, Control R, and Control R. We're gonna worry about everything else later, don't worry about it. So let's try and match these with this. So double tap G to slide them. This top one we can't actually match right now, so don't worry about it. And you can actually see the distortion. This window looks curved in this image. This is because camera lenses usually have distortion along the edges, along the outsides of it. So that's partially why we can't, actually match everything over here perfectly either. We're still doing a really good job. So select this face and this, select this edge and that edge and this edge and this edge. Press E to extrude it, press Y and move them here. All right, so now we're gonna have to do a bit of black magic. Double tap G, actually G, Y, and move it over here. G, Y, G, Y. All right, get into vertex mode, select this vertex, press F. This, press F. And do the same with this top one. I kind of forgot to extrude that up, but now I did. Could have swore I did it. Anyway, just gonna select this entire edge. So the easiest way to do that would be this. Extrude it along the Y direction like this, and then extrude it along the Y direction again, and then extrude it along the Y direction again for the last time. All right, and finally, what we're gonna do is we're gonna select these faces. Sorry, we're gonna select these edges and press F on them. So select them, press F. Don't worry if you don't see what's actually being made. I am pretty sure we're creating the faces, but they are just flipped. All right, and then I'm gonna select them all, Alt N, recalculate outside. Oh, never mind, flip them. There we go. Select these faces that we don't need, delete them. And then I'm gonna just select everything, press E, move them out, and actually move them out even more till it reaches that bit. There we go. I'm gonna have to get into edit view again, Alt N, calculate outside. Select one of the window pane, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this edge, sorry, this face, cursor to selected, and I'm gonna move its origin to 3D cursor. You can come over here, set origin to 3D cursor. I'm gonna duplicate this. I'm gonna make it rotate around the 3D cursor and do Z180. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect. This is near the outside of the screen, so there's gonna be lens distortion over here. You know what? 20 minutes, it seems good enough for an episode. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna work on this later in the next video, along with all of these other tiny small objects. And for now, I'm gonna render this out and I'm gonna meet you in the editing software. BRB. Oh, and I almost forgot. There's this cube here. I am gonna just rename this to bool2 as well. And next up, I'm gonna enable both of these things. So 1, 2, press M, create a new collection, and I'm just gonna call it the Boolean collection. So just call it Boolean, whatever, and OK. Then come over here and disable both of these from, well, the viewport as well as the render, because I kind of rendered it out, but there was a massive block here instead of the window. Something else I noticed is, remember when I tried to, well, just wing this bit, I kind of messed it up. I forgot this one step, so just do it right now. Get into this view. I did numpad 3 to get into this view. Gonna select this thing and tab. You need to be in wireframe mode, so select all of these vertices, S, Y, 0. Then do the same to the next bits, so S, Y, 0, and you need to repeat this for these ones as well. It might be a bit hard to select them, so just zoom in if you can't. S, Y, 0. And I'm just gonna quickly realign them, or just take a look and see if it's still aligned. There shouldn't really be an issue. If there is, it should be minor, so I'm not gonna change anything. I'm just gonna keep it as is, but I am gonna delete this, duplicate this again, RZ180. There we go. Also, this time when I duplicated it, I didn't do Shift D. Instead, I did Alt D. So what Alt-T does is now if I change, for example, say this face, it'll actually change it on the window as well. Anyway, now I believe I can actually render this out. Alright, and since we actually did our first shader, even though it was just a glass shader, it doesn't really matter. Also, please ignore that light in the background. To be honest, we put it there, right? It's supposed to be there because we put it there. Anyway, not the point. My question for you guys is, do you want to use procedural shaders for this? Like, do you want to create procedural shaders for all of these different objects in this picture? Or would you rather use image files? I can do both. Procedural is something that I'm more interested in. But yeah, after we're done with modeling everything, we are gonna need to, put textures in and stuff. We really need to, guys. We can't just leave it white. We can't just leave everything like this. Anyway, next video, we're gonna start adding in tiny details, and I'm gonna try to keep them around 20 minutes. This one got a bit overboard. Let me know if there's any questions, and if you're still watching this, you should probably definitely absolutely subscribe and leave me a like. I mean, might as well leave a comment as well, right? Right. I did ask a question. Procedural or image textures?